Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Judy and I like to talk about spiritual stuff. So if this is the very first video you're watching, thank you for stopping by. And if you've seen some other ones, I'm glad you came back. Before we get started, if you would hit that subscribe button for me and that little notification bell, I would appreciate it. Today I'm going to talk about where do our personalities come from. And if you've watched any of my videos, you probably have a pretty good sense of some of what I'm going to say. But it's actually more, I don't want to say complicated, but more in-depth perhaps than just, oh, well, you know, it's karmic. So, I'm going to speak to you with the assumption that this is not the only life you've ever lived, with the assumption that you may have lived thousands of times. A lot of times when people believe in reincarnation, they say, oh, I've lived at least 2 other lives. And, and maybe that's because they remember a couple of things about other lives, but you've lived thousands of times. The soul has been within a body many, many times. And that's because you just simply can't learn everything in just a couple of reincarnations. You have to, or incarnations, I should say, you have to have so many opportunities. So again, this is all coming from here and here. None of this is anything that I could prove to you, and nothing that is exactly in one type of religion. It's not about religion at all, in fact. Personality, I could use my own life as an example, and then we can sort of expand on that. So for me, I was born in 1955, and when I was born with a sister. We were twin sisters. I was first, and then she came afterward. And we're fraternal twins, so we do not have the same sperm or egg as parents. We have our own individuality, our DNA is different, that kind of thing. We come into this world as infants, newborns, with a personality and temperament. I think any mother can tell you that that's true. Within, a week or two, it's very clear the temperament of the child and some of the personality. I think most of the personality is difficult to pick up on until they're at least 6 months old. But I mean, initially, temperament is pretty easy to pick up on. So we come into this world with personality and temperament. And then we are thrust into an environment, including our parents or our caregivers, any siblings we might have, our socioeconomic status, the type of house we live in that might not have anything to do with our socioeconomic status, eventually the schools we go to, the teachers we meet, the other children, our friends, their parents, any groups we belong to, Girl Scouts, soccer team, anything like that. All of these things shape where we get our personalities. And the interesting thing is, and I know you'll know this is true, I can tell you that 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, I wasn't then who I am today. We evolved during our lifetime. And that evolution may come because of experiences we've had, how much money we have, that kind of thing, what places we visited or not, whether we became dependent on something like, alcohol or gambling, some addiction. And of course that happens because of all sorts of other reasons too. So you see where it becomes kind of complex. But the general thought is, in my way of thinking, that before we come into this life, we are free-floating soul with all the other little souls. And we are, once we've died, we've contemplated what it is we came here to do in that past life that we had, just the very last one. Whether we've hit that fate or destiny, whether we've actually achieved what we came here to do or not. And if we did or if we didn't, that makes our decision as to what kind of life we want to move into next. And the situation that might get us the best success at fulfilling our Attic karma. So you not only come into this life where you're going to be affected by your environment and your internal personality and temperament, but you're also bringing causal memory, astral emotion, and all that you have been is going to come with you. Now, of course, not every single thing that you've ever been is going to be available because it would be too confusing. So we bring with us certain kinds of memories that sometimes we're not even aware are in there. It's almost like if you have a bad experience when you're growing up, and I can speak with my own life. I mean, I had a couple of uncomfortable moments in my life. And when somebody would ask me, before I went to therapy, somebody would ask me, so did you have a good childhood? I go, oh yes, it was so wonderful. And then I'd bring up something that was actually a positive, And that's, I purposefully chose to only remember the things that I liked. Once I went to therapy because Judy was having issues with certain things in her life, and she needed to have somebody help her. So I went to therapy for like 4.5 years. And in that time, I realized that I had been shoving the bad stuff back. I didn't want to pay attention to it. It was there. I wasn't pulling it out. Well, when you come into life as soul, there are memories that are there, but you can't quite reach to them. Still, because they're soul memories, they don't need therapy. And because they're soul memories, they affect how you act, what choices you make. Because your soul is really only interested in one thing, pulling you forward with everybody else. Learning what it needs to learn in this life so it can go on and continue to learn more about love. So your soul has a very distinct purpose in this life, sets you up in a life that probably might give you a better opportunity to hit that goal. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So your personality and temperament may also be molded, not genetically, but from experiences from your past. And I believe that's true. So I think there's a lot of factors as to like why I am who I am. But if we're honest with ourselves and we look at who we've always been, and I think this is such an important point, so I want to make sure that I say it clearly. All this stuff that affects us, like I told you a few minutes ago, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So the external things that affect us do change how we act and that kind of thing. But there's always an underlying who I am underneath of all this stuff. So I can say that I have always felt, this is going to sound so conceited, but don't take it that way. I have always felt very unique, very different. I've always had a very deep faith, even when I didn't know what I had faith in. I always would have considered myself to be a kind of like a spiritual person, although I wouldn't have even known what that meant, when I was 10 years old. But I can say that I've always had a basic underlying interest in these kinds of things. So I think that comes from my soul memory. And then this comes from my experiences, which feeds into my soul memory. Because remember that when I die from this life, I'm going to be again free floating, and I'm going to grab everything from this life that I've learned, seen, done, and it's going to become part of my causal memory of soul. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with causal memory and all that, it's back in a video when I talk about the levels of existence, the planes of existence. You may want to look at that if you don't know what I'm talking about. So what do we bring with us? Where do our personalities come from? That kind of thing. We bring everything we've ever been with us, and we use the part that's going to best help us achieve our karmic goal, which is our destiny, our fate, and again, what we call adi karma, the karma that is with you in every life that you are trying to get to. So I hope that sort of helps. Sometimes it seems so simple, and then I start talking about it, it sounds very complicated, but it really isn't. So if you have any questions, I do like to answer questions of anybody about anything, but certainly these things that I talk about on these videos. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section, or even just let me know what you think of all this stuff. You know, you don't have to agree with me in any way, shape, or form. I like the idea that we're not the same. So definitely hit a like button for me, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. And thanks for listening.